Okay, everybody, we go on with the session. The next speaker is Francois Kerral, and he will tell us more about emotional firewalls, protecting users with unbiased personal assistance. Francois.
Hi. Sound is good? No mixing with other sessions or anything? All right, so my name is Jean-Francois. Most people call me John because it's kind of difficult to pronounce my name properly, and that's fine by me. I work for an organization called the OYO Foundation. We essentially work on digital rights, and that is roughly human rights applied to new technologies. We're going to be discussing a couple of things, or mostly everything we'll be discussing today in this session is not that much technical, okay? And it might not be the typical topics you guys are confronted with on a daily basis. That's going to come with some challenges and some friction. Let's see if we can actually go past that, because it is the role that you play in how all of this is going to be managed in the future is way bigger than you normally come to think of, okay? So first, I would like to do a small test on the crowd. Can programmers stand up for a second? Those who are active programmers. Let's not be shy. I work on a development community, so we actually do this kind of icebreakers and whatnot. Okay. Those who are not concerned with how their data is used by other companies, sit down. Those who don't care. They have my data. They can sell me any product. I don't care. All right. I'm going to assume those who remain do care. Those who are standing up, who are familiar with the concept of human rights, just the concept. Those who are not, sit down. OK, you heard about it, right? Who of you have ever heard about the UDHR, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Those who haven't, sit down. OK. And which one of you has actually read the UDHR? Those who haven't, sit down. OK, it's 2 more than what I expected. And, oh, sorry, 3. All right? And that's kind of the elephant in the room. Programmers are essential on the way you can. Oh, yeah, can you sit down? Yes, yes, sorry. Thank you. Round of applause for actually. All right, thanks. Programmers are essential in how technology infrastructure is built. All right? A lot of people are complaining about big companies using our data, collecting data, linking, profiling, whatnot. And then in the same breath, they realize, hey, you know, I just realized with this new app that I can do, I'm going to monetize my customers' data. And they don't seem to be linking the 2 things. Okay? You have a lot of influence on that. You're going to have the decision to make on how do you architect your next applications so that it respects your data and your customers' data. Now, I'm going to be trying to get some pieces of elements all together, and through the conversation, you will see that they actually start converging to the topic of today. All right? It may not sound very, very logical, but just there's a method to my madness. A few warnings, though. I'm going to ask you to keep an open mind for the whole thing. Like I said, these are going to be topics that are not usually on the table on your daily lives. English is not my mother language, even though I'm kind of fluent, but sometimes I get stuck, so bear with me. I'm suffering a bit of jet lag from coming up. I'm trying to get with it, so again, a bit of patience. All right. What do we essentially do when we are interacting with devices? Most of the time, we are trying to obtain information, right? Okay. How do we start back in the days before we had devices? Obtaining information. So we had 2 systems. We first started going peer-to-peer. We just went to the caveman next door and asked him, hey, do you know where can I find deer? I'm hungry, I need to go and hunt. And they would tell you this is the best zone in the prairie to go and hunt. Then someone figured it out, hey, if we put all the information together in one place, then people don't have to go asking around. And we can actually centralize all the knowledge that we have as a village, as a community, and have it there as a reference. So came libraries. Now, the interesting part is libraries were designed with one specific objective, impact. They were designed in a way that you as a person could go there, obtain as much information as possible, as fast as possible, and the information that you wanted. Okay? Now, moving forward, turns out that there's this cool thing called search engines. We start getting into the digital area, we have access to all of that, and we have essentially libraries who are digitalized. And search engines go all around, they start crawling, they start indexing information, and they have their own algorithms to index that information. Now, the big difference is that those algorithms are not designed for impact. They are designed to make money. And that's a big shift. And it's a shift that most of the time has been very transparent, or very, let's say, sorry, the opposite, very opaque for us. And it hasn't been communicated to users in a very upfront and honest manner. How did we start interacting with websites? Well, we basically went to a website, so search engine. We went to a website, and we started figuring out keywords. Okay? We needed to find ways to pinpoint exactly the information that we wanted and try to refine all of that until we found the result that we thought we were looking for. Has anyone gone in the last years ever beyond, say, Google, for instance? I'm going to assume most of you use Google. Has anyone gone past page number 5 of any search result? OK, at least someone tries. All right? So imagine how all of a sudden, if you are not on page number 5, essentially you don't exist. Most people don't even go to page number 3. And I would bet some money here that most of us don't even go past page number 1. How you are reducing the view of the world and how you are skewing that has a lot of dire consequences. And how the algorithm is deciding what you want to see, on what they think they want to see, on what they want to present to you, changes a lot how it's going to be your perception of things. All right? Now, enter chatbots. Has anyone been here developing chatbots lately? OK. Has anyone really thought about what a chatbot is? I mean, I'm a person who doesn't really like hype words, and I don't like marketing and whatnot. The way I see it, a chatbot is a guided search engine. Okay? The same way as you were before looking for keywords, all of a sudden you got a software that is providing you those keywords to search. You're tapping a certain term, and then the chatbot asks you, were you referring to this, or were you referring to that? And it's essentially guiding you towards a much more targeted result, which is cool. I was last year in this low-tech hackathon in Kerral. I live in Kerral. And it was interesting because they were trying to bring technology into law, and they were providing a number of tracks, and people were basically developing a number of solutions, and in and around 80% of the solutions that were presented by all the teams were chatbots. And of course, the question came like, why? Well, because when we interact with a chatbot, we feel as if we're interacting with someone else. It feels much more natural. It's engaging a number of emotions that makes us feel much more relatable to the product. Has anyone here tried this Uncle Bus chatbot? It's funny as hell. Those who haven't, just look for it and have a talk with him. It really interacts with you in a way that looks very natural, using natural language expressions. And it's engaging. Okay? So it's way less cold, and I'm using my terms very, very on purpose, than a typical website. Now, telephone is not unlocking. For a few years now, we have all of these companies, especially Amazon, Google, Samsung lately, who have been trying to push these personal assistants, Apple with Siri, into our lives. Okay? We kind of got accustomed to it. It's interesting because the way we are interacting with those personal assistants, it's even more potentially engaging. Because well done, it feels like we're talking with a buddy. Now, the only difference is that that buddy is not really your friend. Okay? So Well, when I was mentioning before about the amount of pages that you have when you go for a query and you don't go beyond 5 pages. If you say, for instance, Siri, where can I buy potatoes for my stew tonight? Do we really expect Siri to say, hold on a minute, John, I got 5 pages of results for you, 50 hits each one of them. Let me read one by one. You don't want that. You're expecting a much more fluid conversation telling you there's top 2 options. One of the grocery downstairs, another one somewhere else. Okay? That would be an optimal result for you, something that really is what you're looking for and affordable and available for you to resolve in 5-10 minutes because nobody has free time apparently. But when we are talking about these companies who are putting this personal assistants, which is the model that they are following? Are they following the old-time library system of impact, or are they following a business model trying to sell you shit? Pardon my French. The second one. And here comes the question. Can I be sure that the information that they're providing me is the one that I really want and I really need, or just the one that they want to push into me? It's a very simple question. It's just not the one that they want us to talk about. So, again, please, don't do this to me. Let's go back a little bit on how this is played out. By the looks of what I'm mentioning, it would sound like I don't like data. I actually like data. Okay? Data is good. We need data to be able to make informed decisions, to do plans, even if sometimes that data can be very sensitive. The problem is never to have a data set, is to make it so that we cannot attach a name and a face to that data set so that information cannot be used against someone. That's a basic principle of data protection. The typical example would be that, say, if I'm a government, I would like to know how many people have HIV in my region. Okay? Because I need to know what are going to be my contingency plan, how many antivirals I'm going to have to buy for the next season, and whatnot. Now, what I don't need to know is exactly who has it. Because otherwise, I can actually use that information against that people. In the case, for instance, of Malaysia, if you're a civil servant and you are known to have HIV, you can be kicked out. Now, I don't think this comes to any surprise to anybody of you. Any interaction that we do online is essentially creating digital breadcrumbs about who we are. Okay? You browse, you buy, you date, you go watch in the biggest repository of nothing. And essentially all of that is collecting a lot of information of yours. Now, a company loves to do what's called linkability, which is try to figure out ways, smart ways as possible to connect all of those different separate databases and start creating profiles. Profiles that says a lot of you, not only your personal features, but most importantly, how you think, how you feel, and what are your preferences. Okay? We tend to disregard all of that, but essentially what they want to know is what are your potential emotions, what are the buttons that activate those emotions, and how to play those buttons. And if you think that emotions are not so important, think about right now about how you're feeling about this talk, whether it's engaging you or whether it's boring you. But that's an emotion at play. And if I knew exactly how to talk to each of one of you in the right way to engage you, bingo. I'm selling myself here. All right? At any given interaction that we have, emotions are always going to be at play. That's exactly how we are defined as people. There's no escaping that. And we have to be very aware on how is that playing out with the technology that we're using, and how is that being used against us to follow a certain agenda, whether it is commercial, whether it's political. Cambridge Analytica, anybody? Okay, and that's just the beginning. I mean, I want to guess that most of you knew that Cambridge Analytica, even though we didn't know the name, did exist already. I don't think anybody who was more or less following the trends of things got, oh my God, there were some people trying to use data against us in terms of changing our political views. Duh. The problem is Cambridge Analytica is not even the problem. They were in the spotlight because it was very mediatic and whatnot. But they are bigger companies who have much more information, not even only public information as these guys did. And we all know the names of these companies. They know exactly what we don't want them to know. And here's the funny part. So let's say, for instance, what happened a bit back in the days into marketing, which I tend to demonize. But if I was a guy who wanted to sell vacuum cleaners, okay, I needed to have first a marketing pool and have a look at market research and try to figure out the demographic where I can sell these particular vacuum cleaners and try to manufacture the right amount to make a profit and not to lose money with the manufacturing. That was a lot of money, and that's a lot of effort. Now we are providing them not only with the information, but actually also with the channel to reach out to us. And we're just buying them. There was this guy who he made a talk on TED Talk, kind of a funny talk about him pretending to follow one of those email scams, the Algerian prince and whatnot. And he was just pretending and replying, and it's really, really funny. I recommend you to have a look at it. And he said something very, very interesting. We got into the internet and we thought, oh, we have access to all of this. Fantastic. What we didn't realize is that now all of that has access to us. And we were not quantifying that before. So here we are now with personal assistants that are pushed into us, that talk to us directly, that we think are our buddies, and that when they provide us with solutions and with answers, are we expecting that they are providing the ones that we want or the ones that they want? And so who is going to be actually being the result? Essentially, two types of answers. One, those who have a specific agenda to be there, and two, those who can pay to be there. Because when your world is reduced to this very small amount of options, and because it's convenient, we actually just stay there, who is going to go and double check? Unfortunately, ever since we were kids, no one at school was telling us, you should double check your sources. Most of us don't go through journalism training, for instance, and try to be very accurate and double check things. That's not really what happens. And think about how that affects the freedoms that I was mentioning before in UDHR, in human rights. All of a sudden, data is, I'm giving away my data. Well, data belongs to you. And one of the principles in human rights is that you have the right for possession and to retain possession. Technology is not really providing us right now with a way to make sure that if I request for a company to delete my data, the data is actually deleted. What we have is something much more akin to, if you ever heard about Gdpr, for instance? Yes? Okay. What we have is much more akin as to, here's a brick. Please make sure that the brick follows the specifications. Build your building. And if it collapses, here are the laws that I'm going to use to sue you. But they're always going to go and check the building on itself. Okay? GDPR is essentially a law that allows you to sue a company if after you requesting the data, later on you discover that they did not delete the data. But the request doesn't come attached with a team of specialists flying all the way from Brussels to whichever server anywhere in the world and make sure the data is actually deleted. Never mind how many times it has been copied, never mind how many times it has been sold to other companies. There's no such thing. And here comes the paradox. When it comes to technology, you guys know very well, you get to decide how the software works. So if you wanted to provide a technical reassurance to that, you could. Just the industry is not really supporting that. I'm not getting, I see your face of doubt. I'm not saying it's easy or hard. That's another story. Okay? But it's a matter of will. And the moment that you perceive that there's a gain, and not necessarily economical, there's always a way to do it. And if the transition requires 5 years, then you go for 5 years. GDPR, in fact, was approved in 2016, and they gave 2 years for implementation until 2018. So well. Again. Now, how does that come together to what I was mentioning before? Out of this concern, what we identified in our organization was that the big thing that we needed to protect people in terms of a personal assistant, which is a good idea. I mean, it's very nice. If you think about it, a personal assistant is sort of the Pokemon evolution of what we wanted 10 years ago when we started with devices. We bought this very cool computer, put it at home, and thought, I want this computer to help me. I want it to do things for me, and to assist me, and to make me gain time, and to provide me with very cool services and whatnot. And I'm going to install this web server, and I'm going to be providing, I'm going to install Mastodon and whatever. Cool, all right? And it would be even easier if you could actually remove this very clunky interface, which is a screen and a keyboard. As itself is a pretty slow interface. You don't really communicate with your devices at the speed that you would like. I mean, here comes Elon Musk wanting to connect our heads with Neuralink. Now, we see as personal assistants as the potential device that's going to do these kind of things. But do you really want to surrender all of your capacity of rationality into those devices? So we believe that the only solution for that, and actually the big companies are pretty, no one is recording this, right? They are scared shitless about these kind of models that could appear, whereby supporting open source, unbiased, non-business biased personal assistants, such as Susi.ai, would probably be a solution for this. And how you could apply to that is you would have a base of people using this kind of personal assistants, open source, peer-reviewed, you name it, you know all the advantages already. And start using gossip protocols, by the way, by which you would be obtaining information in a distributed manner. And you will be the judge of how the information is actually reaching to you. Hi. You can imagine that's not a business model that really interests big companies. And so they are doing all they can to actually push their alternatives into our houses. And honestly, who wants to have Alexa listening 24/7 at home? I personally don't feel like it. If you guys want to think about the kind of unintended consequences that can have, I guess some of you are familiar with football and the Spanish La Liga. Okay, I'm from Spain. About 2-3 months ago, turns out that the official application from La Liga that people were installing in their phones, and I'm not even talking about all the way to personal assistance, just an app that you were installing. What they didn't know was that the app was activating the microphone of their phones during times of the matches to try to figure out which bars, which venues were not paying taxes for broadcasting the matches. And of course, no one knew about that. It came as a big scandal, and of course, people started uninstalling and whatnot. But that is without you even knowing. On top of that, you're going to buy a product and have it 24 hours knowingly in your living room, recording almost everything you're doing, with no control whatsoever with those recordings. Yeah, you can subpoena them and you can send a request for, yeah, whatever. Let's see how long it takes, and let's see how much information they actually give you. Because they might not be providing you all the metadata, for instance. They can provide you with the raw data, but very likely not with the metadata, and specifically not what they have learned from you. When Facebook came with this, can I say bullshit? I said it already, sorry. When Facebook came with this bullshit tool about you can download all the information that we have about you, what you can download is the raw data. Yeah, sure. But not everything they know about you. That they don't share. The type of preferences that they think that you have, the type of salaries that you may have, the people you might be related to. None of that, what really matters, that they are not telling you. So, resuming, and almost done, right? Yeah, almost to the dot. When it comes to personal assistance, we don't think our organization don't think that the commercial ones are going to be any good. I'm not saying that they are totally evil. Most of the time, even the programmers who are involved, they're just not aware about the things that they're doing. They are not thinking long-term. They're not thinking about the consequences. Part of the work that we do in the IO Foundation is specifically try to train programmers into human rights and digital rights so that they get to have a say and a voice in the project that they develop. But it's very, very important that we support open source movements by which we know exactly what's the code, or at least we expose the code so peer review can be done. And we can try to avoid as many biases as possible. It always comes down to this question. Where is the line between an informed decision and an imposed decision? And it's a very difficult answer to be had. I personally don't have, I have an opinion, but I don't have an actual answer to that. It's up to you guys to think about what part of responsibility you have and try to collaborate in these kind of projects and maybe try to do some good. Thank you.
Well, Francois, we have time for a question.
Oh, yeah.
Probably the discussion will be continued tonight at the pub crawl, I assume.
Ken?
Questions?
So one of the things I was thinking about as you were talking is, I think one of the core ideas you're expressing is that being cognizant of, that we should be cognizant of the potential for these apps and applications to manipulate us in ways we wouldn't be comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking that, all interaction with the external world could be construed as manipulation to some extent. Mm-hmm. Insofar as when I buy into an ecosystem, I agree to be pushed and prodded in certain ways. Why should I care about the way Google does it or the way that Facebook does it? I still have free agency, and I have the responsibility to be aware of the way that they're doing these things. So, mm-hmm. Why remove myself from that service?
So there's two elements on that that I would give in my answer. One, not everyone has access to the same education that you do, or to the same opportunities to actually grow into that education. And if you think about it, let's go a little bit away from coding and from tech. All education is basically a sort of indoctrination. Okay? So if you don't provide the right tools for people to be able to think and to exert logic and to double-check facts, whichever information you have given them at birth, that's the vision of reality. They don't go beyond that. If you haven't been sparking questions, you haven't been sparking interest, curiosity. Okay? And, oh yeah, thanks. And the second part I wanted to tell you, I just forgot. Oh yeah, relation of cost. I was mentioning before, it took me, so if I want to be pushing a certain idea into you, okay, how effective I'm going to be is very much related to how much money I have in my bank to actually push for the idea, and how much it costs me to actually implement those things. Think about the example that I gave before about selling the vacuum cleaners. Okay? I don't have enough of a picture, and specifically I don't have a direct channel to you, so I need to maximize my impact trying to talk to a variety of people with a much more broader language. Okay? But all of a sudden now I have technology that allows me to talk to you, to the very much you too, because I identify that you have enough things in common. And I can create those ads on the fly with software. I don't even need a graphic designer anymore. And I don't even need to produce the product beforehand. I can print it out in 3D for you directly. So the cost for me to push anything that I want is ridiculous. The dangers on how much more attempts to try to manipulate and to push things that you may not really need without looking into the final consequences of it are just way bigger nowadays because of the cost. And of course, you need to ask yourself what kind of planet you want to live at. That's okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
So, really good talk.
Thank you.
Personal assistant is interesting, but if you look a few years later, when we moved to augmented reality, We go from searching data, asking a question, to actually our entire reality being pushed at us. And this device, to do a good job, will have to know who you are and push entire layers of reality. So this issue is not going away. It's going to get much more important where you actually control what people see. Now, on a slightly more positive note, there's another way. There's open source, as you mentioned. But if you think of a product like Tinder, right? Tinder, you pay for it. And they make money if they are successful in matching you with somebody you like. Because then you're going to tell all your friends and they get more customers. So the quality of their product need to increase for them to be successful. If Tinder was a completely free product, yes, I agree with you. But same thing with a personal assistant. If you pay for it, then you're going to try to find the best possible one. And this one will be motivated to find what's best for you, not what's best for you with an agenda. Of course, what they do with the data is a different discussion.
That's the thing. So first is, who is the owner of the data? Companies believe that they are the owners. We don't believe that's the case.
Can we change so that I can...
Oh, sure. 1, 2? Yeah. We don't believe that's always the case. Actually, never. And second, yes, the conversation was, or the talk was about personal assistants. No, it's not the end game. Okay, the end game is actually to train programmers. I was trying to not really, be heavy on that, but the fact that all of these services that you are mentioning, including augmented reality, are going to be coded by programmers, we identify them as the next generation of human rights defenders, because they're going to be just at the forefront of developing the apps that we are so much concerned about. There's no escaping that. Any more questions? Yes.
Short one.
Yeah, because I think we are a bit over time now.
Probably not. Okay, it's working. Yeah, so my question is basically about what is this called? Regulatory regulation and regulatory arbitrage, because basically most of what you're proposing, in order to make any regulatory headway, you need kind of a global approach, because all of these companies are basically global companies amassing data from all over the world.
So there's two things to be considered. One, software industry is one of the less regulated ever. And when I say less regulated, is I'm not aware, if anyone can correct me, of any technical regulation. As in, software should be behaving, respecting these particular rights of these particular services under this particular code. And we as bodies of governance, we're endorsing this particular thing. So if you want to release software in our jurisdictions, you're going to have to be able to make, to reassure that these things are done in this way, using these APIs or whatever. This might sound very crazy, but imagine what's happening in this building. For this building to be accepted, it goes through a number of regulations, and we all assume that they are done there to provide us the safety of being able to walk into the building and it's not going to crumble onto us. For some reason, software hasn't still fallen into that logic. And I can just craft any software that I want, put it out there, collect all the data that I want, and come and find me. Yeah? I don't believe so. If you restrict yourself into the specifics of protecting the rights of users. I'm not talking about curtailing businesses. But the thing is, if you have businesses whose business model is based on breaking human rights, where is actually the problem? That I'm not giving them business, or that they're breaking human rights? I mean, let's have the conversation there. And when it comes to business itself, just so you know, there's an initiative from the UN called Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, which has been pushed in the past year specifically to try to provide this kind of approach for organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Francois. One more.